All right, Council, it's 5 o'clock, time to get down to work. And so I will call this meeting to order. Today, we acknowledge that this event is taking place on the traditional territory of the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island, including the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Ojibwe peoples, and on lands connected with the Lake Simcoe and Ottawasaga Treaty of 1818. This is the home of a diverse range of Indigenous peoples, whom we recognize as contemporary stewards of the land and vital contributors to our society. I will look to the Deputy Mayor for the motion to adopt the agenda, moved by Deputy Mayor Hall and seconded by Councillor MacLeod. Be it resolved that the content of the Council agenda for October 26, 2020 be adopted as amended, and the recommendation updated. 6.2 MPP Wilson, press release, read letters in support of new hospitals, October 26, 2020. And I will call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. You're going to have to look you, Sarah. I've got about 4 members on my screen. I can't get my screen enlarged. It seems to keep tapping out on me. So if you can just indicate, I think that was likely unanimous, but I didn't see everybody.
You're correct, Your Worship. It was unanimous.
Okay, thank you for that. And next up on the agenda is declarations of pecuniary interest. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof today? I don't see any from the screen I have.
No one has acknowledged any pecuniary interest. Okay,
thank you. And then moving on to the adoption of minutes. It is moved by Councillor MacLeod and seconded by Councillor Comey. Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting held October 19, 2020 be approved as presented. Are there any errors or omissions, Council? Seeing none, I will call the vote then. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Is there any business arising from the previous minutes, Council? Seeing none, then we will move on to community announcements, and we'll start with the Deputy Mayor. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. I do have one brief message, and it has to do with waste collection. Next week is our annual battery collection, and residents throughout the town of Collingwood should have received in their mail a package similar to this one, and it gives people an opportunity to take their batteries that are no longer usable and properly dispose them. If you didn't receive a package like this, you're certainly welcome to use a standard Ziploc bag, and just please put this out. Next week is our blue box collection, so if you just put it out beside the blue box, that would be appropriate. And it's a perfect opportunity because on behalf of our fire chief and the department, when you fall back or when you spring ahead, it's a perfect opportunity to check your CO2 and your smoke alarms, etc. And those who aren't hardwired but using a battery, perfect opportunity to swap them out, properly dispose of them, and make sure that those 2 important items are working properly within your house. And that's everything for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor MacLeod.
Nothing from me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Comey.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. We might have touched on this last week. I apologize if we did. I'm sure everybody's aware it's flu shot season. Some people know this, some don't. I lost my sister to the flu. It was shocking and sudden, and you can play a role in this type of prevention by getting a flu shot yourself to protect yourself and those you love and the community. So please make time to look for those opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. And my understanding actually is this year they have an over 65 shot as well. So for seniors, please get out there. It'll help to inoculate you for the summer, for the winter season.
That's right. Special dose. That's right.
Yes. Yeah, they deserve it. Thank you for that, Councillor Comey. Councillor Madigan, I think I got you in the right order this week, Bob.
Yes, you did, sir. Yes, you did. Nothing for me tonight other than to wish everybody an upcoming happy Halloween.
Thank you. Councillor Doherty.
Thank you, Your Worship. Last week, I attended the FCM Online Sustainable Communities Conference, which extended over 3 days. And it was participated in by some 300 municipal representatives from across the country. It was a very full agenda, including both plenary and breakout sessions, and covered examples of green initiatives from transportation to green energy to wastewater processing, active transportation, and beyond. And the real advantage of an online conference such as this one is that even though many of the workshops were simultaneous, they are recorded online, and so I'm continuing to work through all of them. All that to say that I will provide council with an update, a complete report at our next meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Doherty. Councillor Berman.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. Just one, as I think council's already aware, due to COVID restrictions about public gatherings, the Legion is unable to do a public service on Remembrance Day at the Cenotaph this year. The Poppy campaign starts this Friday, October 30th. There'll be no taggers due to the COVID restrictions, and a limited number of Poppy boxes will be out in the community, about 20% of what there usually is each year. The Legion is asking all residents and businesses to please consider a direct donation to the Poppy Trust Fund, because the needs of our veterans don't disappear just because of COVID. Donations can be dropped off at the Legion Branch 63, and for more information, you can email poppy@collingwoodlegion.ca.
Thank you, Councillor Berman. Councillor Jeffrey.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hanlon.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Okay, I have a few announcements. First off, November is the Violence Against Women Prevention Month, and my friend's house is proud to announce the 8th annual Wrapped in Courage campaign today. Previously, they'd been selling scarves, and this year they're with the times, so they're asking us to wear our courage on our face, and we need to adapt to the new reality. And with the COVID crisis, violence against women is on the rise, and shelters are in need now more than ever for funding. And so women and children across Ontario need your support. So please keep your eyes posted. And on November 1, my friend's house will be launching this very special campaign. And finally, just a reminder for our families locally that we have been quite successful in keeping the infection rate in our community down. And so Halloween is a go this year. But again, we need to make sure that we practice safe physical distancing and practice proper hygiene. So please build a mask into your costumes this year. And parents that are going out, please travel just with your bubble. And everyone should be wearing masks. Respect the social distancing when you're at the houses. They're recommending for houses that you use tongs or other devices to hand out the treats as opposed to your hands. We're trying to keep touch points to a minimum, carry lots of hand sanitizer, and be safe. So carry lighting as well. And so that is it for me. And that takes us then to our consent agenda. And it is moved by Councillor Comey and seconded by Councillor Madigan. Be it resolved that the general consent agenda, having been given due consideration by council, be received. There are two items. Item 6.1 is a proclamation, the Taoist Tai Chi Arts 50th Anniversary Day on November 7, 2020. And 6.2 MPP Wilson press release, read letters in support of new hospitals. And so I will call the vote first and then ask for if there are any items to be pulled. All in favor? And I've got the right button, so I can see that that was unanimous. Thank you. And are there any items to be pulled, council? There is a motion on item 6.2. Seeing no comment then, I will read in the motion. It is moved by Councillor Comey and seconded by Councillor Hanlon. Be it resolved that council hearing continue to support the Collingwood General and Marine Hospital in their redevelopment plans and authorize the mayor to execute the draft letter attached here to send to the province of Ontario and Minister of Health. and that Council of the Town of Collingwood urge the province to approve the Collingwood General and Marine Hospital's redevelopment Stage 1 and provide approval and funding for Collingwood General Marine Hospital to proceed to Stage 2 of their redevelopment. And further, that Council encourage the entire community to further support the CGMH and New Hospital Letter campaign. Before I call the vote, are there any comments or questions, Council? Go ahead, Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you very much, Mayor Saunderson. I'm very pleased to support this motion, which adds to our legacy of support over quite a period of time with respect to the redevelopment. As Council's appointed rep on the hospital board from 2014 to 2018, I can attest to how supportive the town was. And what we will be building on is in September 2016, we passed a resolution to support the hospital in submitting its Stage 1 application to the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care. In September of 2017, we passed a resolution to continue to work with the Collingwood Hospital in any way to assist them progressing to Stage 2 of the redevelopment process. And in January of 2018, we authorized an amount of $150,000 in the 2018 budget to be used at the discretion of the CAO. And while I understand that it was never called upon, it was made available to them. Hopefully, the hope was that to cover off any other expenses they had for Stage 1A and B. And then in 2018, Council supported my motion to consider beginning the hospital redevelopment reserve with the utility proceeds. So I know that one's still in the books. So quite happy to continue. I think squeaky wheel gets the oil, and it's good that we keep it up. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Councillor Hamlin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I asked staff to bring this motion forward tonight and put it on the agenda for two reasons. Firstly, with our MPP Wilson retiring, he has encouraged our residents to embark on a letter writing campaign. And I thought it would be helpful for us as a council to get behind that. I love the letter that you'll be sending, Mr. Mayor, because it really highlights on behalf of our council how much our current hospital needs to be updated, especially in these times that we're dealing with in terms of the pandemic. Secondly, I had been looking at the hospital website and it was out of date in terms of how strong this council's support has been for the hospital, and I thought it was a good time to have our council reaffirm its support. So I am very much, of course, in favor of this coming forward tonight and urge everyone to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hamlin. Anyone else, Council? Well, I can say from my end, certainly Councillor Jeffrey has given a great outline of our past history, and the previous council stood solidly behind the hospital, and the hospital has been working very hard on this redevelopment application. It's an extremely competitive process, and one thing that has not got a lot of mention is the fact that the County of Simcoe, through the Hospital Alliance, over their 15-year commitment of $3 million a year, which brings it to $45 million, has earmarked $20 million for the hospital redevelopment in Collingwood. So that's very good news, and we certainly stand behind our hospital. Its long history in Collingwood goes back even to its name, the Collingwood General and Marine Hospital, since it was one of the few hospitals that actually accepted sailors due to communicable diseases back in the 1880s when it opened its doors. So it has a long and proud tradition in our community, and we certainly want to see it get the development so that our region, as well as our own residents, get the proper health care they deserve. And I saw your card up, Clerk Thomas. Go ahead.
Certainly, through your worship, to members of council, just to be for full transparency, if this motion passes, the content of the motion will be included as part of the letter submission.
Good, thank you for that, Sarah. So with that being said, then I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. So this brings us to item 7, the Standing Committee Report. Item 7.1 is the Development Operations Services Standing Committee meeting of October 13, 2020. And the motion is moved by Councillor Doherty and seconded by Councillor Hamlin. Be it resolved that the Council received the Development Operations Services Standing Committee report from its meeting held October 13, 2020, and hereby approve the recommendations contained within the report as presented, expanding the definition of microbreweries and zoning bylaw. The recommendation is to refer amending the zoning bylaw to extend the definition of brewery to staff. PW 2020-18 Water Financial Plan. The recommendation is to approve the Collingwood Water Financial Plan and direct staff to submit it to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing by the deadline. P 2020-23 Current Development Activity, Emerging Issues and Trends and Town Response. The recommendation is to endorse the initiatives described with regards to the town's administration of the Planning Act. And P 2020-24 128 St. Paul Street, Site Plan Control Minor Adjustment, and the recommendation is to conditionally approve the site plan development drawings for the proposed property at 128 Peel Street, or St. Paul Street. And so are there any items that people would like to comment on without changing the content of the recommendation before I call the vote? Seeing none, then I will call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to item 8, which is notice of motion, and 8.1, Councillor Jeffrey. You want to read in your notice for us, please?
I will. Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. That council herein requests staff allocate appropriate funds in the draft 2021 operating budget to provide mandatory diversity and inclusion training for all council and staff.
And that will be coming up in our next meeting, which I think is November 16th. And so we will look forward to that. That brings us to item 9. 9.1 is the county report. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. Through you to the rest of council and staff and community. Just a couple of highlights and then be happy to answer any questions. The very first is not a highlight, but a comment that I'd like to make. And I'd like to offer and send support on behalf of this council and our community, our thoughts and best wishes. In a previous county report, I'm going to say late spring, I had highlighted many of the successes that the county was experiencing as it related to COVID-19 and specific to our long-term care facilities. And of course, our facility here on Raglan Street is second to none. Many are aware, though, through the media and through reports of the experiences that are going on right now at the long-term facility in Beaton. Beaton is part of New Tecumseh, and like many of the long-term care facilities throughout the province, throughout our country, they are unfortunately not immune to COVID-19. And unfortunately, there have been several deaths of residents, and we have a number of staff who have been also infected with this particular virus. The county, and in particular our general manager, Jane Sinclair, to which this portfolio falls with under, has done, I think, an admirable job in terms of continuing to be on top of the situation, certainly advising and keeping county council aware, and reaching out and collaboratively working with partners in the healthcare system. So RVH, the Royal Victoria Hospital in Barrie, is now a part of the process in terms of trying to get the situation under control and back to the way it was operating, throughout the COVID experience in the spring and summer. The positive to what I just shared is that, and unfortunately I don't have the specific date in front of me, but they've now gone a number of dates without a new confirmed case. So that is a good indication that for that specific facility, they're going in the right direction. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that because certainly our thoughts are with residents, first and foremost, families, the staff, and then everyone else involved in that particular facility. A couple of things that are happening at the council, and this goes back, I didn't have a report specific last week, so we're going back a few weeks now. But one that's very specific, and it's something that I think is becoming a little bit more common in terms of the use or the request, and that is the application of potential ministerial zoning applications as it relates to particular projects of significance. So we have another one that has come forward, and this is an interesting project. It's significant both in its size and its potential application. It is located directly across from the Lake Simcoe Regional Airport, to which now your county has a significant ownership stake and operational control of that particular asset, and to the future automotive park, and of course, and that will be an automotive park engineered towards designing automobiles for the future. This particular not residential, but industrial park has the potential to be one for medical uses, for PPE, et cetera. And some would suggest, well, by the time you go through this entire process, you get buildings up, you start to actually go through the process of manufacturing, hopefully COVID-19 will be well behind us. I hope that's the case. The reality is that I think that our world has changed forever as it relates to how we operate with one another in terms of PPE, how our businesses conduct themselves in terms of making sure that their guests or patrons are safe from one another. And so the things that we are seeing today in terms of masks, gloves, shields between patrons, I think it's safe to say that they're here to stay. So this is a significant business park with about 12 large industrial buildings with the potential to create that type of manufacturing capacity here within the county, not only supporting and servicing the county, but abroad, and taking advantage of local assets like access to highways and, of course, the Lake Simcoe Regional Airport. The reason it's significant is because County Council recognized the opportunity and did pass a motion to support the MZO request to go directly to the province for approval. Another item I'd just like to bring to everyone's attention, and I don't think it was actually mentioned, but it sort of dovetails in, but the end of September, the 20th to the 26th in particular, was National Forest Week. And for those who maybe are not aware, the County of Simcoe in the province of Ontario has the largest managed forest asset in terms of acreage, with 33,000 acres scattered over some 150 different properties, and that's very significant. The reason it's significant is, one, it dovetails into this week that we just celebrated at the end of September, but more importantly, County Council, in recognition of this tremendous asset, passed and supported unanimously, I believe, an updated policy for our county forest and reserve fund. And that is an ongoing fund that will improve the transparency and comply with regulations that are coming into place as it relates to the management of forests to ensure that that long-term asset is properly looked after, because it is quite significant at 33,000 acres. And then lastly, and I know that one of my colleagues was looking for an update, and I'll just touch it on briefly, and if there's a specific question or questions, I'd be happy to answer it. But over the summer and into the fall, we have had ongoing discussions, both at Committee of the Whole and Council, as it relates to the governance structure. And specifically on September the 8th of this fall, there was a special meeting of Council in which there was a report that was brought forward by the governance committee. That governance committee had made several recommendations, and sort of looking at it from a 30,000-foot level, one of the suggestions, for example, is that we would create 5 wards within the county. Within these ward systems, you take the 16 current municipalities and divvy them up. We were merged in with Clearview and Wasaga Beach. And when I say merged, we would remain autonomous. It simply would be that we would have a closer working relationship as one ward of 5 within the county. We also looked at taking 32 members and reducing it to 16, et cetera, as well as the possibility of creating permanent positions for both warden and for the deputy warden. All that to say, after lengthy debate, discussion, it was turned down or defeated, and in part was actually sent back to the governance committee for further for further discussion. They met on the 20th of October, and essentially are recommending that there be reconsideration given, and that they are also forwarding 2 recommendations. And the 2 recommendations would be, 1, reducing the number of councillors to 16 with a permanent warden, which would be 1, so that would be a total of 17 people, or retaining the 32 with 1, which would mean that we'd have a total of 33 members. And so that is coming back tomorrow morning to council for discussion, and then we'll be going from there. So those are some of the highlights, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Deputy Warden, for that comprehensive report. Are there any questions? Councillor McLeod.
Thank you. Just for clarity's sake, the governance committee at the county is recommending that this permanent warden position be a separate election or included in elections that would happen municipality-wide? Through you,
Thank you. That's all grist for discussion, I think, Deputy Mayor.
Yes. Yes, so I think it is to be determined. And if I may, and this isn't specific to your question of the warden, but if I may just take an opportunity to further elaborate, the discussion really revolved around the 32 and potentially rolling it back to 16. And I'm going to make the following remark by just prefacing it by saying that these are sort of more my comments as opposed to the House's comments. And if we go back to the genesis is that this actually predates this existing term, as well as the current progressive conservative government or provincial government. There have been a couple of reviews that were done at the county, and the status quo was maintained. When the current government was elected at the provincial level, one of the very first things that they opted to do was to hire the former chair of the region of Waterloo, Ken Sealing, and a gentleman by the name of Michael Fenn, who is a consultant and extremely well regarded. Both are. And 2 of them were given the task of looking at 5 regions and 2 counties as it relates to their governance structure. They spent an incredible amount of time interviewing people. I know that our own mayor had an opportunity to be interviewed. They had an opportunity to meet with residents, to hold public consultation, et cetera. And I again preface this by saying this is my comment. I was very disappointed that when their report was finally submitted to Minister Clark, the Minister for Municipal Affairs and Housing, that the report upon review was sealed under Privy Council and basically mothballed. In other words, it was not made available to the public. I say that because it disappoints me that, could you imagine, after going through this entire process of the judicial inquiry here in the town of Collingwood, we receive a report on the 3rd, and then we don't make it available to the public. So it hasn't sat well with me since they made that decision. And the shame is that what has happened is I think it has created angst within various municipalities, et cetera, as to, well, what was the real intent from the province? What is it that people would really like to see? What is it that they were trying to identify in terms of maybe the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, etc.? And from my vantage point, and I will admit it's quite limited in terms of my role, actually sitting at the county, but also somebody observing. One of the parts of the discussion that was missing from, I think, from the outset was the fact that, in my opinion, county council works. And I have to say, I really am quite impressed that you have a governing body of 32, plus you have the two separated cities of Barrie and Orillia with their members who sit at the social services level or the human services level in terms of our meetings. And then you have all of your senior staff. And to have that number of people involved in a meeting, whether it be committee, whether it be a council, and to see effective government continue to move forward, I thought, when I compared it to others, was an example of something that actually worked. So why fix it when it's not broken? The other layer that never gets talked about, and this goes to you, Councillor MacLeod, because many people don't realize that in winning the top seat, you also won the prize of being our alternate at the County of Simcoe. So it's not just 32 people, it's another 16 who represent our communities. And in my opinion, we are getting incredible value for that representation because, correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor MacLeod, you're not drawing an income from the county unless you fill a vacant chair from the mayor or myself, and that has happened maybe two times this term. And yet, you are diligently prepared, you're ready to go, you and I are having conversations, I know that you're speaking to the mayor, etc. And the reason I raise that is, one, just to make people aware that you've got three people who are talking about issues at a county level, how it relates to the county, how it relates to the town of Collingwood. And I think that that would be something that would be dearly missed if we only had 16 representatives. So you could have 16 plus an alternative, but potentially, and this is a compliment to you, Councillor MacLeod, I know that you are diligent in what you're doing. I'm not convinced that that's happening elsewhere. So I think we are getting value. But if we had one representative, it doesn't give us the opportunity to have conversation in advance and say, what do you think of this? How does this best fit for Collingwood? How can Collingwood contribute? What's the impact as it relates to the money that's going out? Is it coming back into the community? Those types of things. And so when the issue was first brought to the House, that was my primary comment, was that in my short, limited time, actually sitting in the House, being somebody who was observant from afar as somebody interested in politics, I saw a level of government that's actually working. And so I'm hopeful. I know that there'll be further discussion. This is not an issue that's going away, but I'm hoping that as we move forward, that we continue to see that type of level of representation at the county level, because I think for the cost from a governance standpoint to pay for the 32 members, it's extremely good value as it relates to the overall budget. The last comment I'll make is that there was a second pillar to this, and that relates to, so this was governance. The second pillar relates to the operation of the county as a whole. And could there be efficiencies found within the county itself? And I know that the mayor sits on that particular committee, and I believe that early in November that they are meeting, and that they will then in turn have a follow-up report coming to the council that again is looking more from an operational standpoint in terms of potential efficiencies, synergies, those types of things. So that is my extremely long-winded answer to a question you didn't ask, but thank you.
No, thank you, Deputy Mayor. It was very broad-ranging and very informative. And I guess when you start talking Genesis, I was expecting you to say in the beginning. But thank you for that. Councillor Hamlin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was interesting to hear our deputy mayor's views on county council composition. I'm just wondering whether we will have a discussion about this, because honestly, I don't share our deputy mayor's views on how county council should be structured. I personally, and I know he gave his personal views as well, I personally think we could do with less on county council, fewer members. I do think we need regional representation in terms of members having their sole job on regional council, and someone should be elected for that. But anyway, as I say, I know I'm just one, and I just wonder how, when you guys vote, Mr. Mayor, at the county, you're representing our interests and our constituents' interests in how the county council should be structured. Thank you.
Thank you. The regional representation issue has died. It was defeated, but the numbers at council table are still an issue. So if you have opinions, certainly you've certainly voiced it now. And if you have anything else that you'd like to say, the committee and council agendas are published a week before. And if you have an interest, then you can certainly let us know about any particular item on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a follow-up, so is the vote tomorrow on the composition of county council?
No, this is an ongoing. It was referred back to the governance committee, and their report is coming back, which is suggesting a reconsideration. The way it was left after the last council dealt with it, or committee, last meeting of council, was that the regional reps was defeated and changing the number of municipal reps was defeated, but that there was a willingness to move forward with the idea of a permanent warden and a permanent deputy warden. So the regional governance committee has come back with a recommendation that will be before council tomorrow, which will only just mean that the debate goes on or discussion goes on further. But there's no permanent vote being put on the table tomorrow about that.
Okay.
Just a report coming back.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, council? Thank you very much for the thorough update, Deputy Mayor, and that brings us to item 10. 10.1 is old or deferred business. Is there any old or deferred business, council? Seeing none, that brings us to 10.2 other business. And I believe Councillor Doherty, you had an item. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I am bringing forward a report from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario most recent Waste Diversion Task Force meeting as follows. Just as a reminder to council and members of the public that the task force is comprised of elected officials and staff from around the province and represents both upper and lower tier municipalities. Its purpose is to inform AMO's advocacy strategy and positions on implementation of the Resource Recovery and Circular Economy Act, identifying issues and opportunities for policy affecting municipal governments and providing a coordinated and integrated approach toward full producer responsibility. The meeting was held on the eve of both the Waste Reduction Week in Canada, as well as the release of new draft regulations for the Blue Box program, which are now posted on the government website for a 45-day consultation period, with comments due by December 3rd. The proposed regulation under the Resource and Recovery and Circular Economy Act would move producers toward greater responsibility for a Blue Box program, including meeting regulations for providing collection services, managing Blue Box materials, meeting diversion targets to address plastic waste, and recover resources for use in the economy. If passed, the regulation would expand the list of materials accepted in the Blue Box, including paper and or plastic cups, wraps, foils, trays, bags, and other single-use items, and expand the Blue Box services to more communities, including smaller, rural, and remote areas. It would also expand Blue Box services to additional sources, such as multi-unit residential buildings, schools, retirement homes, long-term residences, and some public spaces. The target date for transition to full producer responsibility is 2025, and this is acknowledged to be a challenging and complex process. It will proceed toward implementation across the province over 3 years. Both single and upper tier municipal bodies were expected to commit to their preferred date for full transition by June of this year. Simcoe County, who is our provider of waste services, has committed to a preferred date for transition to full producer responsibility of the Blue Box program as of January 1st, 2023, or as soon as possible thereafter. As such, the cost of the Blue Box program will transition away from municipal taxpayers to producers and result in an estimated savings of $135 million annually for municipalities. AMO, and indeed the province, recognize that the most exciting implication of transition to circular economy is the creation of a new economic sector focused on technologies and jobs related to container and packaging innovation, recovery, repurposing, and or elimination. Thus, it's not only good for the environment, waste becomes a resource that can be reintegrated into the economy. The implementation of regulations on recovery of electronic and electrical equipment was to have been January 1st, 2021. However, there has unfortunately been considerable backsliding from the draft regulation that was posted for consultation in September. Many municipal governments already collect these materials from residents. As an example, batteries would be included in that, and the Deputy Mayor just alluded to our battery collection next week. Councils will need to decide if they want to continue to provide these services and what type of compensation can be negotiated for these services from producers. However, AMO recognizes that municipalities should not be forced to adjust their programs to respond to producer decisions, and this will be, I'm not going to say a battle, but it will be ongoing discussion certainly over the next few years. Municipal hazardous and special waste regulations come into force July 1st, 2021, and draft regulations will be released this fall. Municipal data shows that municipalities are compensated for only a very small portion of the materials collected. Under 20% of pesticides and fertilizers collected, as an example, and only about 50% of aerosols that are collected. AMO's concern is that the government's focus will be to transition the existing program to producers, but not to put pressure onto producers to expand the program. January 2023 will be the target date to have a food and organic waste strategy for green bin municipalities finalized. The current provincial policy statement has requirements for municipal governments and businesses of certain density and size thresholds to implement organic collection programs, and some amendments were announced recently to clarify and expand the materials collected and to improve tracking and reporting of organic waste diversion or reduction efforts. There has been some private sector pushback that has led some municipalities to remove some organics from their list of collectibles, and the case in point is the City of Toronto right now. The policy paper has been strengthened on the need for municipal and institutional, commercial, and industrial source separated organic programs to accept a larger number of compostable products, such as coffee pods, at organic processing facilities, but has weakened direction on other products, for example, soil paper products, so i.e. diapers, etc. The government also has a fresh interest in renewable natural gas solutions for organic waste, and these are issues that the task force will be continuing to pursue. Another major issue is around single-use plastics. Currently, a number of individual municipal councils, including our own, have responded to resident pressures to change the system and are passing resolutions around the banning of single-use plastics. This month, the federal government announced that it would be adding plastics to the toxic substance list under the Canadian Environment Protection Act. This is a crucial step toward regulations that would reduce plastic production and use and disposal. The comprehensive federal agenda to work toward eliminating plastic pollution includes banning of single-use plastics where warranted and supported by science, introducing product performance requirements, so for example, recycled content, to support sustainable end markets for recycled plastics and zero new plastic production, and working with provinces and territories to strengthen the collection and recovery through extended producer responsibility. Using this framework, the Environment and Climate Change Canada has identified 6 single-use plastics as potential candidates for a total, partial, or conditional ban. And these are checkout bags, straws, cutlery, stir sticks, 6-pack rings, and food service ware made from problematic plastics, like, for example, styrofoam. Consultation will inform the development and implementation of these regulations, including phase-in periods, reporting requirements, and appropriate exemptions. Draft regulations will be posted on Canada Gazette 1 for consultation in 2021, apparently early in the year. And discussions will be ongoing for the development of other measures to support the implementation of this framework. The task force will be meeting again next month. And that is my report.
Thank you, Councillor Doherty. Are there any questions, Council, for Councillor Doherty? Seeing none, it's certainly a very important topic, and good news on the Simcoe County front. Since going to the bi-weekly recycle and waste pickup, we've reduced our garbage by weight by about 15%, and we've increased our green bin usage by the same amount, which increases our diversion to into about the 65% range, and we're aiming for 70%. So there is good news in there, but lots of work to be done.
Yeah, great to divert it, another thing to find markets for it.
Yes. Is there any other business, Council? Councillor Madigan.
Thank you very much, Mayor Saunderson. It's been a very informative meeting tonight, but I would be remiss. This is the last meeting that Marjorie Leonard is employed by the town of Collingwood. So I just want to say thank you. Last term, in the last 6 years, sitting directly in front of her, she made it very informative but entertaining at the same time. With her quirky responses, and we're all going to miss that candy drawer that she keeps stocked with sugary treats. And thank you very much, Marjorie, for all you've done for myself over the last 6 years and made Collingwood a better place to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Madigan. Well said. And thank you very much, Marjorie. And we certainly hope you have a very happy and relaxing retirement. Thank you for all you've done. Seeing no other business, then, takes us to our confirmatory bylaw, and that is moved by Councillor Madigan and seconded by Councillor Doherty. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2020-71, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of Council held October 26, 2020, be enacted and passed this 26th day of October 2020. I will call the vote. All in favor? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor MacLeod.
Sorry, I think I saw Councillor Hamlin's request to speak sign up. I'm sorry. I just want to be sure that she didn't get missed by accident.
Councillor Hamlin, you wish to speak?
Well, I did have one matter for under other business. I was prepared to wait till next time, but if I just had 2 minutes, I would just summarize what it was. What I wanted to was, and thank you, Councilor McLeod. I've been listening in on the Future City Summit, which is an annual event held, and there are speakers and attendees nationally and internationally. And this week we heard from the CEO of CMHC. And what I wanted to bring to Council's attention and anyone in the community is that CMHC has launched a housing supply challenge, and is to incentivize much needed innovation in creating new housing supply. So they're inviting applications from across Canada to propose new ideas and solutions that break down barriers and limit new housing supply. And proposals that address barriers to supply and ultimately help more people find an affordable place to call home will receive funding to develop and implement their solutions. And this challenge is open to for-profit enterprises, nonprofit, municipal governments, and any combination of those. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you again.
Thank you, Councillor Hammond. In fact, I was on a conference call the other day with Evan Siddell and his vice president, and so we're looking into some of those housing strategies and housing development opportunities. So it's a timely announcement. And then we'll move back then to the confirmatory bylaw. It's been moved by Councillor Madigan, seconded by Councillor Doherty. We'll call the vote again. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. And Councillor Jeffrey, do you have a motion for us to adjourn? All in favor? That is carried. Thanks very much, everyone. We did that in 50 minutes.